ugly female leads in video games. See, this pertained to the first article that I looked at earlier with Witcher 4. Now let's see what Asmongold's got to say about that. Also, that intergalactic game, which we're about to talk about after this.
Hi guys, it's me again, and today we're going to be talking about some drama. We're going to be discussing the new games that got announced at the Game Awards, and I watched the show. I thought it was great. I had a good time, but a lot of people didn't. And guess what? It's for the two main games that got announced there. The Witcher 4 and also Intergalactic. Now, both of these games, I think, had a lot of discourse surrounding them, and we're going to talk about that discourse. And we're also going to talk about what that discourse implies with people that have become increasingly...
Honestly, those Intergalactic and Witcher 4, I don't even care about. I'm not going to buy either one of those games. I'll probably watch Intergalactic be played by somebody, like I did with The Last of Us Part 2, because I actually bought The Last of Us when it originally came out on PS3. I pre-ordered it and bought it, and loved it. And I heard about Last of Us 2 being full of woke garbage, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna skip this one, I'll just watch it. Glad I didn't pay money for that. Now I'm gonna know extensively if I'm gonna like a game before I buy it, because I just don't trust these companies anymore.
Against and at war with reality. And this, every single time that reality hits them in the face, there are a lot of Twitter threads about it because people are not happy. And guess what? If you spend all day on the internet, you usually have a distorted view of what the world looks like. And even to a certain extent, I'm sure so do I, but it seems like these people are even worse than I am. So anyway, let's go ahead and, at the beginning, I want to talk about one thing before we get into either of the games, actually. Let's talk about subjective opinions. So anybody cannot like or like a video game for whatever reason that they want. They don't have to justify this. They don't have to explain it.
Yeah, like people always giving me shit whenever I'm talking about how all these games, 'cause I dislike about probably 90% of the games that get advertised to me. And I just get shit on left and right. Like, my takes are bad, or like, they're a fan of the game and they completely wholehearted disagree with me and they start throwing insults. If you end up liking games that I dislike, or I end up being wrong about a game being bad, like, that's okay, man. It's okay. I'm probably not gonna listen, and I'm probably not gonna buy it anyway, so there's no point in getting upset about it.
They don't have to debate it or argue it with anybody else. So if you do or you don't like any video game, you should never feel like you're obligated to defend that opinion or not, because it is your own subjective opinion and you have every right to it and nobody can take that away from you. So I just want to make that very clear, because there have been so many people talking about how, oh, well, this person shouldn't be having this opinion. You shouldn't be saying this. You shouldn't care about this. Well, guess what? Some people do. Too fucking bad. Anyway, let's talk about The Witcher 4. Now, The Witcher 4, well, The Witcher 3, one of the best-selling games in the last 10 years, had a male protagonist. The new game has a...
I bought Witcher 3 for like $4, I think, with all the DLC and everything. I played it for probably 3 hours. So I still haven't played that thing. It's probably what'll happen to Witcher 4. I have Witcher 1, I beat that. Witcher 2, I played about half of it. If I get Witcher 4, it'll be in about 5 years, and it'll be on sale for like $4. Because that's how I like my games. On sale for $4.
The female protagonist. If you understand the story, which at least I kind of do, I understand at least enough of it to see why the new female protagonist is the one carrying on the story. Now, this, however, has caught a lot of people off guard, and it's frustrated a lot of people, because I think that there has been a growing trend that people are observing of genres and different IPs that have had a male lead that's being replaced by a female lead. And I think also, this is, again, it goes into my first point about people being at war with reality. Because I've got to tell you guys, gender is a massive barrier with relatability. It just is. And that doesn't mean that that's the case with everybody. I'm sure there's going to be people that, can't understand abstract ideas, so they have to comment and say, that's not what I think. Well, that's nice. but I think that in a general sense it is. I think gender is a massive barrier to relatability. So if you take a character that people relate to and they can see themselves in, and you change its gender, you do fuck with a lot of people's vision of the game and of the story. I think that's just how it is. And you can disagree with that, but that doesn't mean that it's going to go away. I think it's still...
To a lot of people, it's turned from like a badass story with emotional points to an emotional story with badass points. At least that's what it looks like to me, and that's what it seems like to other people who I've seen videos talking about this.
It is very, very, very much the truth. And so a lot of people are unhappy about this. And they also thought that Ciri is uglier, because if you compare her model in-game for The Witcher 3, and then you look at The Witcher 4, she does look a bit older, and it's a CGI trailer, so there's a lot more detail put into it. It looks more realistic. Now, my personal opinion, I have actually personally dated a Polish girl with a big nose.
Here's my personal opinion on that. If it looks kind of bad, it doesn't bother me. But you need consistency if you're gonna be posting a trailer like that. If you got instant consistency in the game itself, that's fine. The games have jank. But this is a CG trailer. And where every trailer is CG and also has problems, it's so easy to see these problems. Why did you let it go through?
So I think that she's fine. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody else does. If you think she's ugly, you don't want to play the game because of that, that's fine. That's whatever. I personally don't think so, and I think that CD Projekt Red has earned a degree of my trust with how well they've handled Cyberpunk and also The Witcher 3, that I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm
not going to give them the benefit of the doubt because Cyberpunk took a very long time to get to the point that it was, and they've made a lot of changes in their company since Cyberpunk was even finished. They made a lot of changes in their company. A lot of changes that I don't like only hiring women. That was a thing. Don't like that.
Going to really, really hope that the game is in fact actually good. So we'll have to wait until we see her in-game model and we see a little bit more of the story before I go ahead and start complaining and crying about this all too much. So there's that. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is the growing issue with a lot of games that are adding characters that are unattractive, unappealing, and unlikable. And oftentimes it's all three, unfortunately, but many times it's in fact just one. And so what's happened is that I think that a lot of studios have fallen prey to this idea that players and people want to have realistic characters. I don't actually think that this is true. I think that this is a media narrative that's created by journalists and it's created by people that write about video games, talk about them. But the truth is that I think most people, they actually do care about what a character looks like to an extent, and the people that don't care are irrelevant anyway, because let's go ahead and use a little bit of logic. So why would you ever put a ugly character in a video game? Well, I think that this serves no one. I don't think it serves anybody, because for all the people that don't care whether the character looks good or not, well then those people are going to play or not play the game.
Yeah, and it's not even that. It's not even that it's an ugly character, right? It's that it's an ugly character and they're saying, it's not ugly. What's wrong with you? It's not ugly. What are you talking about? It's realistic. That's when people are like, all right, because you can have ugly characters. Let me tell you. You ever played what's it called? Abe's Odyssey? You ever played that? That's an ugly ass character. People do not mind playing ugly characters, but don't make it an ugly character and say that it's pretty.
Anyway, and the reasoning for that is going to be completely independent of the character's appearance. And for the people that are going to play a game or do care about a character's appearance, and they use that as a criteria of whether they like the character or not, and by the way, a lot of people say that people don't do this. If people didn't do this, microtransaction cosmetics would not be making billions of dollars, okay? Like, this is just such a completely stupid, delusional thing to say. They would not be able to sell all these cosmetics if people did not care about how they looked in video games. So,
True.
that being said, and there's a million other examples I can use, like gacha games, etc. But I think that let's just look at cosmetics as a meta thing, and then that immediately proves that people do care. Maybe you don't, but again, abstract sample, there are many people who do. And for the people who do care, I do think that having a character that is unappealing, unlikable, or just in general not something that people want to see, that's just or unrelatable. I think that's another really component. Not necessarily what people don't want to see, but just in one way or another unrelatable. I think this serves literally zero purpose. And in fact, all it does is it serves to hurt the game. So let me explain why. Again, so you have all the people who are, they don't care about the way the character looks. They don't give a shit about it. They're going to play the game based off of the gameplay. Well, they've already made their decision, and the way the character looks, stated by them, is that they don't care. So then you only have the remaining people who do care about how a character looks. Now, do you think that more people care if a character is attractive or unattractive? Do you think that more people want a character inside of the group of people who care about the way a character looks? Are there more people inside of that group that want the character to be attractive or unattractive? Well, I'm just going to take the wild guess and think that they probably should think that the character should be hot. That's it. And this is also true for guys as well. I don't really think that anybody wants to play, well, maybe some people do. Many people probably don't want to play a version of a fat neckbeard brony wearing a fedora with a My Little Pony t-shirt with cargo pants and socks and sandals on.
Unless that is what the game is supposed to be. If that is what the game is supposed to be, then that is completely fine. What is that game? It's like, My Name is Chris or something like that. That game, it's like a fat guy with his belly hanging out. But you know that's what the game is.
And this guy is going to be the one who saves the world from God, right? He's going to have to destroy God. Many people probably would not really relate with that character, and they'd rather have somebody like Clive from Final Fantasy 16.
I don't know. That sounds like a funny game. That sounds like I would play that game if there was a fat neckbeard with a fedora trying to, I don't know, fight God.
And so this is true cross-gender, but it's also another big issue, what I was saying before, about people that are living in opposition to reality. A lot of people are in the mindset that these things are not relevant. These things do not matter. And again, they don't matter to a lot of people, but they matter to enough people for this to make a difference. And I also hear the narrative that these are things that are only held by a small minority of people. Only a small minority of people actually think this. And I have a challenge to everybody who thinks that. If you think that all of the people that dislike whatever game it is, whether I think the Intergalactic game is probably the one that's most worst received, I want you to find me a reveal trailer of a video.
It's so sad, man. Intergalactic looked so good other than the character. The character just like ruins the whole thing.
Game that has a less than 50% like ratio that turned out to be a success for a studio. Go ahead. Go ahead. Let's find out. And you know what? I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of them. I've looked for them. I've tried to find them, and I didn't see a single one. And so what I think is happening is that you have people that want to believe something so bad that it's caused them to distort reality into imagining that it's actually real. And so what's happened is that a lot of these people are so fixated around making sure that the game reinforces some worldview that they have that they are unwilling to look at the rational implications of what is actually something that players want to see. And this goes into the idea of genres. Now, I'm sorry, guys, but I guess I have to be the bearer of bad news. But if you're making a video game, and it's set in space, you're a bounty hunter, you've got guns, and you fight things with laser swords, the majority audience of that game is gonna be a bunch of fucking guys. And that's it.
It sounds like Star Wars to me. It sounds like they're trying to fill in the gaps that... It's funny that Star Wars Outlaws just came out, and now this game's coming out, and it was just announced, and people are just like, this is literally the same thing as Star Wars Outlaws. Like, it feels like Star Wars looks like Star Wars, and the character is like an ugly woman.
So if you make a game like that and you don't appeal to that target audience, you are going to have a very hard time selling that game. And it doesn't matter whether you think this should be true or not, or whether you know somebody who isn't part of that group, who is a girl or whatever, who likes these games, or a guy who doesn't like them. That's totally fine, but I think that the averages speak for themselves. You can look at games like Concord, Dragon Age Veilguard, or any of the other games that have come out recently that have tried to take a non-traditional approach in telling a story that is meant for a majority male audience. And I think that guess what happens? When that happens, well, a lot of people get frustrated, disappointed, and they think to themselves, you know what? I don't think this game's meant for me. I'm not going to play it. And that's what happens. And so I feel like, how many points on a graph do you need to be able to draw a line? I think that it's very obvious that these things clearly do matter a lot to players, and this is not enough of a small minority for it not to be taken seriously.
Cyberpunk was meant for me. I bought Cyberpunk. I got burned. And let's see, the Master Chief Collection, that was meant for me. I bought that, got burned. Baldur's Gate 3, that was meant for me. Bought that, I did not get burned. That was a great game, amazing game. A lot of games come out, they are meant for me. Intergalactic, seems like it would have been meant for me if it had a better character. Better characters in general. Both the characters that it showed, wasn't really into them.
And also, I think that the implication is that a minority of people actually care about these things, whereas I think the actual reality is that a majority of people do. It's just that the amount of people that dislike it on social media might be a little bit higher, but it is more or less a respective sample size. Because I've never really seen a case, as I said before, where a game was massively hated on, you know, like the reveal trailer, and then it turned out to be a massive success. I just don't really think this happens. You know, first impressions are really important, and it matters a lot if you make them or not.
Silent Hill 2 is actually a good example, because I thought it was going to be bad. A lot of people thought it was going to be bad. Ended up being great. So that's a good example.
And so a lot of developers are trying to design games and make games for everybody. They're trying to make the game for the target audience of anybody can play this game, it's going to appeal to everyone. Well, unless you're playing Tetris or you're playing some other sort of abstract game like that, this is just simply not the case. There are going to be games that are more appealing to men versus games that are more appealing to women. The same as there's music that way, the same as there's, you know, like movies that way, manga that way. I mean, manga, they do it right. They literally have names for it. Shonen is literally made for young guys. So that's basically the way that they handle it, and I think that they're doing a lot better than comic books now, last time I checked. So the big issue is that people are trying to design and create a narrative that is based off of a worldview that doesn't actually exist. And what's happening is that you see games like Intergalactic, and you see games like Concord or Dragon Age or whatever, where they are designed with this perspective that, well, anybody can relate to anybody. And of course this can be true to an extent, but it's not true on a law of averages. And I think that that's what's really happened, is that you have people that have convinced themselves and gaslighted themselves into thinking that the only way that you can make this game and make it successful is if you make it appeal to everybody, but in the case of appealing to everyone, you actually, in fact, appeal to no one at all, just like Concord did. Just a second, take a drink. So, what I think is going to happen is that these games are going to come out, the reception around them is going to become more negative, indie games will not sell well. And I think this has been proven time and time again. And ultimately, for all the people that like good gameplay, they're not going to care about this. That's totally fine. But I think that there are enough people out there that also, there's another component to this as well, is that
there's enough people out there, you can make these games $1 and they still won't buy them. There were people gifting each other Suicide Squad as a joke. And people were getting mad because they didn't want it in their library.
When people view or they perceive some degree of like messaging, or they perceive some degree of like social politics in a video game, it immediately takes them out of the immersive experience the game is trying to create, and it makes them think about the game in the context of real life contemporary social politics. And I think this destroys the escapism, and it makes people more skeptical and less, positive about these video games in a general way. And I think also this happens with movies and TV shows as well, but in a lot of cases it just happens with video games the most because that's what I talk about the most. But anyway, with a lot of these characters, anytime that I see a character that's added into a video game and the character is not attractive or the character is meant to be unappealing to a majority of people, or it's not, it's like doing one of those things where it's like, oh, well,
It's supposed to be realistic and relatable and diverse and inclusive.
all the people that don't like this are bigots or racist or something like that. You can call people that all you want, but that's never going to convince them to buy your game. And I think that the people that do that, anytime I see that...
Not only is it gonna not convince them to buy your game, it's gonna make them even more adamant to not buy your game and other games like it, even if it's just got a little bit. Eventually people are just gonna not even buy a game just because of the body type A, body type B crap that they have in games.
In a trailer, I automatically assume the game is going to be complete trash. And you think to yourself, what do you mean? Like, that just means the character's ugly. Like, who cares? What about the gameplay? Let me think about it like this. If making an ugly character, as we've already established, actually is at best a negative or a net zero effect, and in almost all cases a negative effect, why would anybody do that? And I think that the mindset of putting things into a game that players actively don't like, that is more important than the actual enjoyment of the customer, I think that that mindset is going to permeate the entire game. I don't think that it's just going to begin and end at character selector or at character creation. I think it's going to be the entire game is going to have problems because it is fundamentally at face value, literally at face value, not designed for an audience. And I feel like I've been right a lot. I do. I really feel like, so I see people getting mad about this, especially getting mad at me. I'm just saying, boys, let's wait and see. Let's see what happens. I wonder if the thing that's happened every single time is going to happen again. Oh, wow. What a, I don't even know what to say. It's amazing. Yeah, I don't know. The suspense is killing me. I wonder if the game that everybody seems to hate is going to come out and be hated. And so people have been increasingly walling themselves off inside of their own echo chambers and trying to create their own reality. And I think this is the reason why people want censorship on social media a lot. The reason why is because these realities that they create are very, very fragile. And so the moment that one of these realities actually, butts up against an actual, the real world, real experience, well, then these people are going to be writing posts and talking and complaining about it and saying, oh, we'll do better next time. The reality is that a lot of people don't think that way. And I think that you've had the internet that's allowed so many people to effectively remove themselves from reality and construct their own in place of it. And I think that video game discourse is a very good microcosm of that. But you're seeing this with politics. You're seeing this with, geopolitics. You're seeing it with social issues. You're seeing it with everything. And people have become increasingly more disconnected from reality because the internet has allowed them to do that. And it actually does a really good job at that.
I think people are coming back to reality. I think they're grouping up and getting into the actual groups that are meaningful. A lot of them on places like Discord and X, and getting in spaces and actually talking to people again like we used to back in the Xbox Live days when people actually were meeting people online and having friends that they never met before in their lives, but they're in another part of the state. I talk to so many people daily. And it's good, man. People telling me to work out, and I work out. People telling me to keep working out. People telling me to keep working, keep streaming. People giving me advice, But I have a closer relationship with these people because they're not just randos online.
And so what I think is going to keep happening is that these people will continue butting up against reality and becoming very, very frustrated and upset. And I think it's very funny because I also believe they will never learn. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. I think Witcher 4, we're going to have to wait and see. I think with Intergalactic, the game, as I said, the graphics for the game look incredible. But I don't really think the game's going to do very well.
The theme looks incredible, too. I'm really into that theme and that 80s, retro wave vibe. I like that a lot. It's like my favorite aesthetic. But that character, those characters, I feel like they took a younger character for the redheaded character and made her older. She didn't look like an old character. She looked like she was forced to be old. And I feel like they forced this main character for Intergalactic to look the way she does too. I don't think that the character who she's supposed to be portraying doesn't actually look like her. I'm betting that's true. I haven't seen it, but show me the side by side. I guarantee that they modeled her off of the voice actor and then changed it to be uglier. 100%.
You make a space bounty hunter video game and you have like a bald girl who isn't conventionally attractive. I don't think you're really going to get that male audience that those games are really intended for. I don't think you're going to get them. And so we're going to have to wait and see, but that's my prediction. And I think also, you can get mad at the people that are saying and being rude about it or whatever, but my best advice is to just wait and see. And I feel like, again, the thing that's happened every single time will probably happen again. So anyway, guys, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are in the comments, and I figured I'd make this video since I've got the day off and I want to talk about this, and that's pretty much how I feel about it. So anyway, guys, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.
Well, what do you think about that? I'll tell you what I think about it. I'm gonna wait and see. Either way, I'm gonna make a video on it. If it's bad, great. I'll make a video shitting all over it. It's good, great. I'll tell everybody I'm wrong, and I'm still probably not going to play it until it's on sale for $4. But if it's good, then I will buy it for $4 on sale. If it's bad, then I'm not going to do that, unless it's like the good kind of bad, you know what I mean?